Welcome to the World War II Simulation Student Orientation presentation. In this online version, we use Google Classroom. You could use Moodle or any other school platform, Edmodo. Doesn't really matter. I used Google Sheets from Google Classroom in my Google Drive. The leader list is going to show the leaders that we have in the simulation. This is also going to show whether you are a president, which is the chief decision maker, or you are a foreign minister who negotiates with other countries and gives advice to the president. Years. Each day will be a year. Roughly, the class period is from 40 minutes to an hour each day of the simulation. And the first day, which is called 1938, is the orientation day, which is where we explain how everything works. And then the simulation runs from 1939 to 1945. We use a turn system to keep things organized. The first to go would be the Axis powers, and they would declare war, which is in the online version, which would be the battle plans. After they have done their war phase, they will go into movement. And in movement, you can move anything that you did not use during the war phase. This would be like to get troops into position for the next battle, or to reinforce or be prepared to reinforce other areas that you may need to protect. After the Axis go, then it's the Allies' turn, and they will do the same thing that the Axis did. They'll have their war phase and their movement phase, where all the countries would be doing their attacking and then they're moving. Finally, the neutrals go. They have war and they have movement as well. And once that's done, we start it all over again. And we try to end with either a war or movement with one of the alliances. And then the next day we start exactly where we left off. And we will try to get as many turns done in one day as we possibly can. War and movement. Okay, we're going to show a little example here about how we conduct an actual move. So we're going to say that Great Britain is going to be attacking Germany with 400 troops, and that means they're going to have to move in some more Navy. So we're going to move 160 Navy into that North Sea zone, and then we're going to transport 400 troops, because we've got 400 Navy, into Germany. And so now we've got 400 British troops up against 6,168 German troops. And so we've made our movement for the battle. Let's just say now that Germany wants to reinforce, even though they obviously don't need to, but we're going to bring in another 2,000 troops into Germany from Bohemia, Moravia. And so now their numbers are 8,168, and we're ready to do the battle. And Germany is the defender, so they get the bonus. Commence. And the Axis powers were victorious, which they should be. They had a huge advantage. So that's kind of a demonstration of how we can move Navy, use Navy to move troops. Also, we can see now that the defending country can move troops in to help defend as long as they are connected, which Bohemia, Moravia, and Germany are connected. Now that Germany has used those troops in that battle, they cannot use them again this turn. So if someone else were to attack Germany somewhere else, they would not be able to move any of these 7,825 to help defend. By the same token, during any subsequent battles by Great Britain, they cannot use this Navy any longer. Now, Germany could attack that Navy, but Great Britain could not move it to move troops or defend or do anything else, because that goes along with you can only use troops in Navy once per turn. Now, next turn, everything starts all over again. Now, the big difference between the World War I simulation, the World War II simulation, is the introduction of natural resources and that having an effect on your rating. So everybody starts off with a military rating of whatever it is. In this example, we're using 3 as a military rating. And then there are 4 different natural resources that could combine for a total of 4 points. So in the example here, we see that this country has 0.5 of oil, and they need 2. And so therefore they have, they have 2, or they have 1 credit of oil and they need 2 credits. Well, that puts them at a 0.5. The most they could get is 1 point for each of those natural resources, which means their overall military rating could be at a 7. But they don't have everything they need. They've got all the iron ore they need, so they're at a 1 for that. They've got 1 credit out of 5 needed in coal, so that puts them at 20% or 0.2. And they've got 7 credits out of 10 for rubber, so that puts them at 0.7. So you add those up, that puts them at 2.4. Added to their military rating, they have an overall rating of 5.4. Now, when they gain more resources of things that they don't have enough of, their rating is going to go up. And when they lose resources that they needed, it's going to go down. And that's kind of how the natural resources can change people's ratings. So it's strategic because those resources are located in the strategic areas that they were during the war. And that's why it's important, because if your rating gets bigger, you're obviously going to be a much more powerful army. There are 2 war maps in World War II, the Pacific and the European. Here's an example of the Pacific region here. You can see that the Axis powers are yellow in color, the Allied powers are orange. The neutral powers are light green, and the gray countries are the non-involved countries. Natural resources are indicated by black boxes or oil, green boxes or rubber, red boxes or coal, and maroon boxes are iron ore. One of the geographical man-made features in this simulation is the Maginot Line. It's an extensive series of fortifications, and it rests on the border between France and Germany and was built by France. Germany cannot attack through the Maginot Line. They can only move through it if they were to control F1, but they cannot directly attack F1 through the Maginot Line. Another strategic scenario is the Baltic Sea. At the start of the game, the Baltic Sea is open because Norway and Denmark control those 2 pieces of land. If they were to fall to the same country, however, they could close off the Baltic so that no sea traffic could go in or out. Some of the countries on the map we call non-involved countries, and these are countries that you cannot invade, you can't go through them, you can't do anything. They have no natural resources, and they were never a part of World War II officially, and that would be Portugal, Spain, Turkey, Switzerland, and Mongolia. Now, we do have some unmanned countries that you can conquer if you wish. Denmark, Albania, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and Greece all are leaderless, but you can take them over because they may have some strategic value. They have no natural resource value, however. The transfer or capture of natural resources. All right, we're going to be showing you how to do a transfer of resources in the online version. So we'll start with, we have to put in the source country. So in this case, it's going to be the Soviet Union. The target country is it's going to Germany. So we're going to put Germany in there. The year is 1939. So we have Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler. Now in the real simulation, you'd be putting in your student names as the leaders of those countries. And so now the first resource that's going to go out is going to be 2 units of coal. And the source for that is Belarus, because it has to come from a specific target area. We're going to go 4 credits of iron ore, and that's coming from the Urals. There's obviously no rubber in Russia. We're going to have 4.5 credits of oil, and that is going to be coming from the Caucasus. And that's how you do a transfer of resources, and remember that will go into effect the next day. So if you transfer that stuff in 1939, it would be ready in your storage depots by 1940 at the start of the game. And if you were to lose, or if the Soviet Union were to lose those resources, then they would go back to where whoever took it over. And then the teacher will put in an X, which means this has already been put into the system. When you take over resources, it automatically goes into your storage if you are the one that took it over. But when you're transferring, it always goes on to the next day or the next year, however you want to look at it. All right, let's take a look at the Natural Resources Worksheet Calculator. This is kind of a way for students to keep track of the resources that they have acquired and that they have transferred to other countries. We're going to say that we're Japan, and we're going to use a fictitious military rating of 1. And we're going to say that Japan has taken over the Dutch East Indies. The amount of resources that they have, we're going to say for oil is 5. Actually, let's say 1. And what they need is 5. So we know what they need. Their overall rating says they're at a 0.2 because they have 1 credit of oil and they need 5 to fully fuel their army. And so we're going to say that we've taken over the Dutch East Indies, which means we have acquired resources. And in the Dutch East Indies, we'll say they have 8 oil. And so now, as you can see, our oil rating has gone to a 1.0, which is the most it can be. And we also have a surplus of 4 that we can share with our allies. So let's say that we decide we're going to transfer now. We're going to transfer some of our excess resources to Germany. And so this is a transfer. It's going to be a negative number. So we're transferring 4 credits of oil. Now you can see that our rating stayed the same because we still have what we need, which is 5 credits. So we still get a 1.0 for oil. And now we've got an overall rating of 2.0 because we've only used one of the resources. And you can see we have boxes for iron ore, coal, and rubber. So all these resources would be taken care of on this. And this helps keep track of what you've done and what you've taken over. And you should be able to use the View Resources sheet to see how much you have. But you wouldn't be able to see who you've transferred and all that stuff too. So this is a good way to keep it. We've got 4 different boxes down here, tabs, so that if you have more than one country, you can keep track of your resources separately of where they've gone to, and that'll just help keep you more organized. So we have a read-only map, which will show both the European and the Pacific theaters for the simulation. There's a View Resources on the view-only map, and you can look at that, and it'll tell you how many resources you have for each one of the 4 natural resources that we're targeting. just a little bit of a note here that the view resources is the first thing to glitch in this massive program. So that's why your worksheets are important to keep up to date. We know that the view resources can glitch and show false information, but the actual information inside the program is working because we actually dove into it one time, and that was a very expensive venture. And it is actually, the battles are actually being calculated correctly, but for some reason the view resources glitches a lot, so I don't think you want to trust that. The next sheet we're going to talk about is called the National Strength Sheet, and this will show the following information. It'll tell you the Army sizes, the Navy sizes of each country, but most importantly, it will tell you where the natural resources are located in those countries, because those are very important strategic places that were important to both the Axis and the Allies as to where resources were located to either acquire for their own alliances or to take away from the other side. Alliance certificates, this is also going to be on a Google Sheet, in the same Google Sheet under a different tab called Alliances. The alliances you make that are, I guess the alliances that are already there, you don't have to put in here, but if you make new alliances, so we're going to make an alliance here with an example. Our first country is going to be Germany, and that'll be signed by Adolf Hitler. In actuality, it'll be, of course, the president of whoever is Germany. And then Italy, and that'll be signed by Benito. And that's how you make an alliance on the online document. If an alliance is broken or you want to get rid of it, then you just erase it and make sure you let the teacher know that they need to announce that that alliance is no longer valid. And the same way, if you want people to know about the alliance, you need to, because not everybody's going to be looking at the alliance sheet all the time. So make sure you tell the teacher that you want that announced. All right, now we're going to do an example battle plan. And first thing we're going to do, this is going to be a land battle, so we're going to put in Army. We're also going to put in the region to be invaded is going to be P1 of Poland. The attacker is going to be Germany. And the defender will be Poland. This comes in the year 1939. So the invading forces are going to come from Germany and East Prussia, which are both from German troops. We're going to say 300 from East Prussia and 1,500 from Germany. So now over here, P1 we're going to have 600 troops, and we'll say we're going to reinforce with 100 more from P2 of Poland. And so now we've got our battle set, and when it comes up in the queue, then the battle will be carried out over here on the map, which is online. And then the map will take care of who wins, who loses, and how many troops are left, and so on and so forth. So the battle plans will go in the order that they are put in, so you want to make sure that you take your time and put those in the order that you want them to come up, because that's how they will be done on the online version. Top secret documents. All the information is blacked out here, so we don't give away Finland's information. But it'll give you your Army and Navy size. It'll explain where your rating is at when the game starts, any alliances you have, the resources that you have and you need. Very critical to read the summary of your country and your situation you're in. And then also the objectives, which are very important to get into your report. These are the things that are going to guide you. You cannot go against your objectives. That's what keeps everything on the rails. But this is not a play either, so how you go about getting those objectives is up to you. One of the first things that will be read as we start is the World Situation Summary, and it basically just summarizes the political situation in 1939. It shows military and economic alliances that were in place at the start of the war in 1939 as well. The simulation report will be filled out. You can work on this throughout the simulation. I would not wait to the end to do this. The report will be due usually the day after we finish. The last section is on your objectives. You're going to want to go in there and fill out your objectives now, and especially the point totals that those are worth. Because that way you understand how important those objectives are and how many points you're going to lose if you don't follow them. And if you really go off the rails, you could lose your country. So remember, the objectives are critical. This is a World War II simulation, not a total free-for-all. Journals. You're going to want to journal daily during the simulation. Things you want to put in are thoughts, plans, significant things that happen. You don't want to put in play-by-play and troop numbers and all that kind of stuff, because that really doesn't matter. We want to know what you're thinking and what your strategy was and how you came about that strategy. Those are the important things. And there you can see I've given you an example entry. Tell it like a story. Make it dramatic. Make it so people want to read it, so that the teacher wants to read it, because that's kind of how the war is going to go. It's a very emotional experience. Helpful advice. John Blackjack Pershing was one of my heroes, who's George S. Patton, was his idol. And Pershing had a great attention to detail, and that's what made him one of the things that made him a great commander. So when you come to class or you're online for this class, make sure you have a plan and then have a backup and then have a backup to that. Because things are going to change rather quickly. You don't know what the other side's going to do. Anticipate what your opponent's reaction will be. Now, there's nothing, I mean, we have top secret documents, but there's really nothing that you couldn't find on the internet if you wanted to. Another thing to guard against is you will become your country. It's going to become very emotional, and it's not France being attacked, it's you being attacked. Or somebody goes against your alliance. So remember that as you go forward, that you're going to get emotional and you're going to have to be careful about that. So, last things to do, download the simulation report, type in your objectives, type in your point values, download your journal. Each person's got to fill out a journal and fill out your natural resources spreadsheet. Assess what you need to have, because that's where you're going to want to go right away and try to get those resources so that in 1940 you are as strong as you can be. Let's let the simulation begin. No, stop.